Welcome to the Fellas Podcast, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans by fans, where we discuss all the happenings in the world of Formula One. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Fellas again. We're going to be talking about the race of Qatar. However, before we jump in, we need you to hit the like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell to keep up with all things the Fellas.
Buckle up, race fans. It's time to experience the Formula One Miami Grand Prix like never before. Feel the rush with a chance to win exclusive 2-day race passes for the 2025 Formula One Miami Grand Prix. Immerse yourself in the high-octane thrill as the world's fastest cars zoom by on May 3rd and 4th. But that's not all. Relax and rejuvenate with a 3-night stay at the luxurious 4-star Serena Hotel from May 2nd to May 5th. Enjoy panoramic views, plush furnishings, state-of-the-art amenities, and daily breakfast for two. Your entry supports Binivo, a non-profit dedicated to fostering young racing talent, including 14-year-old prodigy Truly Adams, who's racing towards a future in Formula One. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of a lifetime and support the future of motorsport. Enter the Formula One Miami Grand Prix sweepstakes today. Fuel your passion. Support the future. Sweepstakes end on December 17th, 2024, so hurry before it's too late.
Gentlemen, what were your opinion of the race that we just saw? Who wants to jump in?
The race, in my opinion, was a little boring, a little disappointing. I was looking for a little bit more excitement. I know we have some things we want to talk about today, but overall, I didn't see Max winning this race. And, you know, for him to win some more this season is being par for the course. So a little boring. I don't know what you guys thought, but it was a little boring for me.
Ralph, what about you?
Yeah, it was a little lackluster with the exception of some of those calls. But I will say this. I was happy for Max that he won, especially that he got what seemed to be a bogus call during the qualifying. You know, everybody was like, what's
very
that?
Questionable.
Yeah, it was very questionable. So to see him, you know, really gather up and jump on it and take back the lead and go from there, I was happy for that. He put in a good race, you know, and karma. I forgot I believe that's what his race engineer said, you know, and it's true. Karma.
Oh, okay. So just teeing off of what you just said, right? Because this time we had a new race marshal, I believe it was, that was, you know, in control of stuff. And you know, everybody was talking about the penalties that were levied for different infractions, right? However, what I found interesting was that Max was ahead of Lando and was able to distinguish Lando's engine note to know that he did not lift for the yellow that popped up, because he's the one that called it in to his his thing. And I find that very fascinating that you are all the way ahead of the person, right? You're ahead of the person, you're hearing your engine, but it's just, you know, I found it fascinating that he would be able to then distinguish his engine as opposed to the McLaren engine to know that, hey, when we went through this yellow, he didn't lift.
It could be that, or it could be, you know, there are monitors around the track, and those drivers, especially at Max's level, they will drive and they'll glance at the monitors as well. So he might have seen that the gap came down where it should have stayed constant before the yellow. So
Half a second.
Could be that, you know,
Half a second.
Okay. Yeah.
He noticed half a second
right.
difference, especially when he took his foot off the gas and realized after he did that on the straight, realized, because they have all that telemetry, on either on the steering wheel or somewhere within the cockpit, because they can read that every lap. They're getting that information somehow every lap. It could be the monitors, like you said, Ralph, but yeah, he noticed there was a half a second difference after he took his foot off the gas.
Yeah, and they proceeded then to sync Lando's race all together. It's like it was rookie time for the Marshals. You know what I'm saying? It's like that they've never done a race before, and they don't understand that, yes, you have to put infractions in, but still you are there to entertain the crowd. So you have to, you know, measure the infractions as opposed to just throwing the book at everything. And it seems that things are in disarray with the FIA. You know, that's as far as I'm going to say.
That's clear, because I don't know what the procedure is to bring in a new marshal for the track. Like, I would think that you would shadow the person that you're going to replace. if you're moving all around, maybe you can't all the time, but I would think you would shadow them to know. But it almost seems like they're like, okay, tag, you're it, and this person comes in and they just do whatever they want. That's how it seems. I don't know if it's true, but by the calls we got this on this race, it sure seems that's the way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, shadowing is probably what they're doing, but making decisions on the fly is something that if you're shadowing, you're not accustomed to doing, right? I believe that even with the debris that was on the track, it shouldn't take 4 laps for you to make a decision whether it's going to be safety car, virtual safety car, or someone's going to run out there during a period when the cars are coming down the straight and taking care of it, right? It was, to me, it was utterly ridiculous. I was watching lap after lap while they were doing nothing, making a decision on that one side mirror that came off of someone's car into Bottas was that ran over it and then created all this extra drama that shouldn't have been there 3 laps ago.
Right.
Yeah, it was amateur time. It was Bush League for sure.
Right.
Yeah, well, Bottas ran over because he was letting through a faster car, right, getting off the racing line so they could go by. So I agree with you. In the other way, I was kind of surprised that they reacted so quickly when they saw the second car as opposed to waiting for a third car for it, right? Because I had a feeling that they were like, oh, it's just 2 cars, whatever. But then they picked up and woke up and said, oh, we need to do this. And then they even woke up some more and said, okay, instead of going down the front straight now, let us go down pit lane, to give them the time to, blow off the front straight. So, yeah, it was amateur hour in that. And it's kind of detracted from the race in some ways, right? But, it's just, because the first lap in the race was one of the entertaining laps, right? When they just started off, he took Russell. Russell was on used tires. He was on new tires, so he had better grip, right? And then, Lando almost pulled it off coming around on the other side. But again, it seems, I don't think has there been, from your recollection, a person that's passed Max on the outside of a turn this year? I can't remember.
Not that I recall, and probably not, because everyone says you're not going to get around Max on the outside.
Right. So
he push you wide.
Right. So that's what he did to Lando, right? He pushed Lando out, and that was it. But it was, just getting back to it, the FIA wrecked the race from, because they could have given him even better just a drive-through penalty if they wanted to do something that drastic, or just add time to it. I understand that a yellow is important because that's how Jules Bianchi, right? That's how he died.
Jules Bianchi died. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I thought it was through that type of, there was a yellow and there was equipment on the track, right, that caused him to whatever. I forgot the details why he ran into the equipment and,
It was a combination of things. Yes, it was a yellow, but it was like typhoon weather. It was like some biblical rain coming down on the track. So, it was one of those that maybe they could have red flagged it, but they were trying to remove a car off track and his car slid into the crane, which was there removing the car. And his helmet hit part of the crane and he died.
Right. So I think they're, taking it more seriously, drivers not reacting to the yellow, but I think they went very far with their, punishment. And it wasn't, it was only one of few for the race that they just went overboard with levying stuff. So it's, and it was a sad thing. Go ahead.
And I agree with you, Ray. I believe Lando's penalty was questionable as well, because if they took care of business within the first 2 laps of calling a safety car or a virtual car, I do not believe Lando would have not seen the yellow flag. He didn't see it. In my opinion, if he saw it, he would have slowed down. They were taking way too long to make a decision. And even after the race, after the post-race interviews with Lando, he still didn't know exactly what he did wrong.
Right.
So it's obvious he didn't see that yellow flag or the double yellow flag, right? And if they would have taken care of business, I'm talking about the stewards and the FIA, as far as doing a safety car or virtual safety car, that problem would not have existed.
Right.
And the problem for Seiss and also for Lewis wouldn't have existed. So you ruined the race for 3 individuals because you did not make a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, from what my understanding, that they had the option of a 5 second or a 10 second. 10 second being very damaging, and from what I understand, that hasn't been used before. So yeah, they just they say safety, fine, it's safety, but it didn't appear that they were even trying to get the mirror off of the track. So yes, I understand safety, but there was no Marshal on the track.
Or at least have somebody out there with a double flag.
Right.
Raising the flag.
Right.
I know the signs are there to help with that from a safety standpoint. You don't have someone on the track doing the double lines or someone reaching over the track. But when was the last time Lando did not slow down for a double yellow? Right. He just didn't see it.
Right. Well, I guess like we said, it's consistent with what we saw for the weekend. Starting with Max's penalty, then you come into the Grand Prix with that.
George was pushing for that penalty, though.
Yeah,
George was pushing for it. I don't care what anybody says. He wanted that pole position.
Well, of course he wanted it. He tried to get it. So yes, of course he wanted it. But do you want it that way?
I think he does.
A win's a win, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
They say a win is a win.
It'd be on his record as a pole, as he got pole. It'd be on his record, right? So for negotiation times for contract, that is something that he can say. I have 10 poles. I have 10 pole positions on a race. Whether or not the 10th one was legitimate or not, or someone gave it to him is irrelevant, right?
I view those types of things like for someone new to the sport a few years from now that remember, they'll say, oh yeah, no, he got pole. But for someone that's been following the sport, it will have an asterisk next to it. Verstappen had it, and due to meddling by the FIA, he lost it. So but it would have been more valuable for George if he was able to convert it into a win, but he wasn't. So there we go.
Well, they messed up George's pit.
As
far as changing tires anyway, but
I
don't know if you want to get into that.
But he didn't have anything for Max.
Mm-mm.
He didn't have anything or Lando, because Lando got around him too. So
yeah, I think McLaren was the one that gave up the sauce. Well, FIA caused them to give up the sauce, basically, right? Because I think the competitive car was the McLaren was the competitive car to the Red Bull in this race, right? Because everybody else, even Ferrari, right? When they got around, when Lando was pushed off, they still couldn't make up ground to catch Max, right? So I think it was McLaren's race to lose, and they kind of pushed it off. So now they're going to have to fight in the next race to figure, to see if they're going to be the champions for the constructors.
No, now that you say that, I think also it shows that Lando has to come up with a better strategy for attacking Max, because it seems more often than not, Max is able to get the better of him, right? Max knows how to handle him to get him, he puts him where he wants him, so to speak. So I think Lando has to dig in and figure out a better strategy, how to get around him, because I will say that probably wouldn't have worked with George if he could have attacked him, if he had a car to attack him. It wouldn't have worked with Lewis if Lewis had a good car. Alonso, it wouldn't work. Carlos, Sainz, or even Leclerc. Leclerc, I think, still has to work on his too. But for some reason, I think Sainz, Lewis, and I'll say Fernando would have got him. If he
definitely. Come on. Fernando. Yeah.
But they have more in there. Lando's new. So I'm not trying to talk negative of Lando. I'm just saying it's showing something that he now should say, okay, I have to work on that. He has to intimidate Max in some way.
I think next year is going to be interesting.
Me too.
Well, hopefully it is, right? Because I think that I understand Formula One's about technology. I might be digressing a little bit here, but
go ahead.
I think there are a lot of good drivers on the grid that we're not seeing their capability due to the hardware that they're using, right? And because of the companies lack the ability to bring a product that is competitive. Mm-hmm. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And, I understand that, F1 wants to be an innovator of stuff, but at the same time, I think if we could figure out how to minimize some of that stuff. I think they're trying to do it in some ways, but to do it in a, more where we can get cars that are at a certain level to see the real thing that the driver, see what the drivers can produce with cars that are at some level, right? Because I know it's not going to be a spec setup because that's not Formula One, right? But they have to work on their rules and something to help them that the teams are allowed to innovate in certain areas more that does not have that drastic a difference across the board, right? Because if you want to see good drivers, that's why they have spec series. They put drivers in the same car, quote unquote, and you see who the good drivers are. And I just think this season and last season, we saw it was very, constructor dependent on how they went about applying the rules and building their car. That there are drivers that, that I think get overlooked all the time. And, and I apologize for saying now, but it's just something I just couldn't get, stop saying. But we're not seeing the true potential of the field.
Well, I think there's truth in that. There are a lot of variables, right? There's politics, there is money, like how much are you bringing and so forth. There are a lot of variables to that. But having said that, the team principals and so on, they know when they see a quality driver, even if he is in a substandard team, they'll see it. They know what to look for. They know what that car is capable of, and to see if this driver is bringing out that or just a little bit more, kind of a thing. So, I mean, not singling out anyone. I mean, you can look at the grid as it is now, and you could kind of see who's aggressive in the machines they have that are in the midfield or back markers. You can see who's aggressive, but you can see also who's aggressive but controlled. And then you can see who's aggressive but is unstable, right? All those parameters they're looking at. But I agree with you. It wouldn't be Formula One if all the cars were the same. That's part of it, is like, can you make your car perform? Kind of like when Braun was like that Cinderella story that year when Honda pulled out and they came with the car and they had the blown diffuser, and all the other top teams are crying, wah, going to the FIA, it needs to be banned because they didn't think of what they did. It leaves room for that as well.
Right. I think the one thing that is missing, Ray, in your argument, which I think is a great argument, it'd be nice from a fan standpoint that everyone has a specified car that we know 95% of it is equal, and the 5% is the driver. But what that limits, it limits the creativity and the technology-driven pursuit. There needs to be creativity within the racing realm for Formula One, because they use some of this technology on their cars.
Yes.
So as they're pushing the limits every week, pushing the limits every year, they have those engineers and their technicians trying to come up with creative ways to not only win or compete, but also use that technology in their standard purchase cars that they sell to dealerships, right? So I think what they do to a certain extent is making sure the rules and requirements and regulations are all governed and the same for every manufacturer and every car, making sure weight is an issue, making sure that the engine specs to a certain degree are the same. And that's the only way that they can somewhat create equality. But they have to have that creativity and that way to use technology to move forward, or I don't think we're going to have the creativity of the technology in our regular cars that we should. Right.
And good point, Simon, because even though, Ray, I know you feel this is an implement of the devil, paddle shifts came out of F1,
Right.
Yeah, well,
and made it. And also, and before, the first hybrid cars had the KERS system, and now they've moved on from there, and we're seeing that in cars. So to Simon's point, yes.
I understand innovation is necessary, right? But I just said that because of the broad spectrum of innovation that's allowed, you're not seeing some of the drivers, right? So from the fan's perspective, somebody that comes and watches, right? They're just seeing a few people that are in the cars that are, hit the mark as far as what they need to do technologically to perform up at the front, right? Whereas we're not seeing the other guys. So it's just an observation. I understand, if without the having technology in place, it would not be Formula One, right? I understand that. And I think the FIA at some point tries to rein it in somewhat. So, trying to figure out where, to plug the loopholes and stuff like that. But, it's just an observation, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you need to have a race of champions, pull everybody out, throw them, you know what? They should pull everybody out and throw each of them into the F4 cars and say, go race for one race and show me what you got.
They did that with Senna and a few other racers back in the day, back in the 90s. But you're right. I watch V8 Supercars, which is an Australian racing series that is somewhat similar to NASCAR, but they actually race on a road circuit. And the cars are pretty much 98% the same, right? And the driving skill is unbelievable. Unbelievable. You can point out who's the best driver. And there's probably 8 of them that are equal, right? When it comes to the skill level. And then you can see the difference there. But yeah, in Formula One, it's very hard to see whether or not the 18th person is actually skillful enough to compete with number 1 or number 2, right? It's hard to gauge that because of all the technology and all the differences and all the variables within Formula One.
Yeah, and that race you were talking, Simon. Yeah, I remember. I didn't see it, but I've read about it and I've seen clips of it. And it was with the Mercedes 2.316 190.
Yes,
Senna, who was still up and coming, blew away the field of like seasoned world champions that were in the same car. So I understand it. Ray, it's always been something that has been floated, but they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, well, it's just like they just finally got comfortable with having a sprint setup, right? It's they're slow to change, but I think it would be entertaining. Yes, I think they fund enough money that if these guys went out, they crashed all the F4 cars, they all could pay for it, And I think it would be entertaining to have like they used to have back in the day, the Race of Champions, is to have one, or like they have, when they have the All-Star game, to have one thing, even at the end of the the season, and hey, you guys are the same car, go out there and have fun and, race for something, right? And it would be cool because then it's just like you see in some of the sprint races, right? That you see other people pop up in the higher ranking as far as finishing in the race, right? It's just, it's a similar thing. So anyway, it's just an observation. But winding back to the race, we're going to pop on Mercedes. Lewis had a horrible race. And to the point, I have a question for you guys. You think he's just tired and wants to leave now? Because my man was saying, yo, pit the car, to put the car in, just put the car in, you know what I'm saying? And they had to come back on the radio and say, stay out. You know what I'm saying? So it's, it's just like, it's unusual for me to hear something like that from Lewis, right? So, what's your views on that one?
I'm worried about his mindset. In the sense of, to me, you have to finish what you start. Even if it's the worst thing you've ever gone through, there's a lesson to be learned from it. There's always a lesson to be learned from it. There's no lesson to be learned from quitting. And you're going to go into a new season with a new manufacturer with that stigma of quitting in your head. And not only in your head, but in the minds of everyone else on your team that you quit on Mercedes over the last 2 races. He doesn't need to do that. He's a 7-time world champion. He has nothing else to prove until he gets into the Ferrari car. Just finish it out. He knows the politics. He knows there's something going on there behind the scenes. They're not going to tell him. He understands. I see no benefit, or I saw no benefit of Lewis telling everyone he was going to Ferrari before the season started. In my opinion, I don't know if he did that when he left McLaren to go to Mercedes, if he did it a year early. But now, to me, I don't see a benefit for him personally, for a driver personally, to do that to themselves. Right? I can see the benefit for the manufacturers that he's going to. I can see the benefit of all the money that's coming in because he's saying he's going to Ferrari. But to a driver of his caliber and his status to say he's leaving a year early, Mercedes is not putting any money, time, or effort into you right now. They just want as much points they can get for the constructors but you're just a regular driver to them at this point, and that's how he's getting treated.
Well, I think he should have known that. He's been around the block, and I know he knows how to play politics as well. So I agree with you. You don't quit what you start. Finish. Finish. It's tough, but push through. When it's done, you take that downtime and clear your head and get yourself straight for your next adventure, for your new team. But, so I would venture to say that I doubt he's driving an equal car to George. I'll say that.
Half a second in qualifying?
Right. But I have to say it softly because I don't know, but I'm going to guess to say, no, he's not. I would like to think he's stronger than that mentally, though. But I think he's just at the point where he's, like you said, fed up, and he knows not to quit anything. That's why he's gotten where he's gotten to. But I think he's probably at a point like, I just don't care anymore. As far as Mercedes.
Right.
So I think his mental fortitude is still there, but he was just like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to go. It's one more race. You could put whoever you want in there. I'll just go do whatever.
He needs to look at Alonso. Alonso's painting a really good picture of what to do when you don't have a good car. Even though he was a little frustrated today, but just see it through. Yeah. You started it. Yeah. See it through. You know what time it is. Come on, you just see it through. Ray, what's your thoughts?
Well, so Lewis is not as you guys said. Lewis is not a quitter. So I wonder. What are we not privy to have him say that on the radio? You know what I'm saying? Is it that insurmountable that because that's not something typically comes from Lewis, right? Where he breaks form like that, right? He's always about the team, tell me this, boom, boom, boom. And for him to really say that today, just like, let's pit the car. Mm-hmm. Something else must be going on for him to bring it out and be public like that, because he's British, he's prim and proper, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Especially he doesn't show rarely does he show the laundry outside like some of the other competitors that are on that, on that course. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it just struck me to hear him say that because he had the flat tire, right? Then he had a penalty, and it's just, it could be that the car is so set up that because he's not part of the briefing anymore. So they've, set it in such a way now that it's undrivable that he can't get around to it. It just makes me wonder for him to say that on the radio, knowing where he's come from, all the struggles he's gone through and all that stuff. It just, that's why I put it out to us to say, hey, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. Go ahead, Simon. I have one thing to add too.
Yeah, I want to add one thing. I think when he wanted to retire the car, I think it was because he was last place. We don't know how much damage was done because of the flat, because his bottom of the car was scraping against the road. And I think he wanted to retire the car and not necessarily quit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I am trying to surmise that at this point, right? However, I don't want him to quit and not race next week. And I guess that's where I wanted to clarify my comments. He needs to see the season through. Mm-hmm. And whether you retire the car because it's damaged or because he did say that during the radio, the car is messed up. Mm-hmm. But I want him to finish what he started when it comes to Mercedes.
I'll say this too, though. Very uncharacteristic to get the clutch release wrong on the start, right? And I mean, he's further back on the grid. He timed it wrong when he released, right? So that was one. And then, fine. But then you're coming into the pit and you exceed the pit lane speed limit. Makes me wonder, where is your head? That's Lewis Hamilton. I'll say it. Like, what else is going on? Like you said, we don't know what's going on in the background or whatever. People, all those drivers put forward a very strong exterior. But it's been my experience, there's always a way to get in, to mess with someone's mind. You know what I'm saying? Even as strong as they may appear, there may be a way, but it seems for him to make those two mistakes is either he really doesn't care anymore or what, I have a big question mark. That's all.
Right now, what is he racing for?
I think he's just racing for the end of the season.
A champion needs motivation. A champion needs something to race for. So he's going to make silly mistakes because he's not in the mindset of I'm chasing a championship. I'm chasing the points. I'm chasing some sort of constructor constructors points. Nothing. There's nothing from the race for right now. So he's just there.
Right.
Well, he's driving a substandard car that that they won't, that he can't drive around, right? Because what was it, a couple weekends ago when the car was hot, he came back almost, he hit himself for messing up during qualifying because he could have had an easier win, right? Where he came storming back to second, with Russell. So yeah, it's just it makes me wonder. I was taken aback when I heard that come over the radio that he was saying, hey, it's probably possible what you're saying, Simon, that because I started thinking about the same thing. Then he's like, well, we're not testing anything new, so what's the purpose of me running around? And because it seemed like he's saying the car can't get back up to 10th place at least to get back into points. So then why am I running around on the track? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I hope he writes a book, a tell-all, because I would love to know what happened during his time with Nico when they switched the mechanics, and I would like
and
sabotage them here. That is a book I would run out and pre-order or buy right away because we
need to get him on the podcast 10 years from now. You know what I'm saying?
But no, he said it when he was still at Mercedes with the Nico era. He said, when I retire, that's what he said.
Yeah,
when I retire, I will write a book and I will let you know what took place. And I remember him saying that because I was like, you ever do that? I'm buying it because I want to know.
Yeah, better yet, get Netflix to make a movie about it.
Okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'll watch it too. But anyway, so all right, yes, we beat that one to no end. What about K-Mag? K-Mag was pretty active in the backfield there with his thing with Albon, I believe it was the pass where my man. He's another guy that was like a yippee-ki-yay saying, I'm out of here. So what the heck? Because I think he threw an expletive when he passed him at the after a couple of laps. So that was funny. That was real funny. We saw some stuff in the backfield, and it was quasi-entertaining. But again, it just came back. I think the FIA soured the whole thing from what was there. So
definitely did.
So I'll just before we wrap it, I'll just say thank God for Colapinto that he didn't cause that crash.
Oh, dude, yes, because it seemed like he was going to be in big trouble for that one.
What?
If he did?
Yes, right. He would have been. Thank God.
Do they have any more Do they have any more parts?
No, they were borrowing parts the last race from Aston Martin.
I know.
So
they don't got any more parts. So I don't know what they're going to do for the last race, but we'll see.
Break out those F4 cars, bro, and go spec. Everybody spec for the last race.
Yeah.
Oh, no. If the constructors is over, then they could do something like that. But the constructors is still on. So yeah.
Right.
No.
But yeah. So and then Liam Lawson. I don't know. For some reason, I was watching nothing against Liam. I thought about Daniel during this race. I was like, I think Liam is probably around where Daniel would have been. I thought about him. I was just like, wow. But anyway, nothing against Liam. He's doing his thing. But I just thought about Daniel for a little bit during the race.
Predictions for next week?
Max, McLaren, Ferrari.
I'm gonna say Lando, Max, and Ferrari. And by Ferrari, I'll say Carlos. Carlos ahead of Charles.
Wow.
Carlos.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Lando, Piastri, and I'm gonna say Leclerc. I'm gonna be the different one, the difference maker here on this one.
All right. Well,
all right.
Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell.
See you next week, guys.
Later.